out of fear, he gave up his wife who married Pharaoh, and he got goods for it. In this video, I want to take a little bit of time to identify a couple of templates in the Bible that are very rare. The Bible is full of templates. One template that is called the monomyth. If you don't understand what a monomyth is, you'll never see it. Yet the Bible is full of them. Every prophet is a called hero. In the same way Hercules, Jason, in Greek myth, other mythologies have called heroes, this is a religious genre of the same thing. Same template in use. Instead of defeating Hydra, you might have to defeat a giant. Instead of defeating an ogre, you might have to destroy a city or something like that. But they're all following the same template. Now, in the Bible, there are two templates that are not the monomyth template that are very rare. If you know Joseph Campbell's work, he did not have it completely identified, the monomyth itself, and he doesn't have it accurate. But also, he didn't even catch that there's two myths before, or two templates before the monomyth template begins. The monomyth template is each person saying, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to take an inward journey to heal my past. That's where it starts. What would the other templates be? Where do you come from, and how did you get there to begin with? They're human life templates. My name is Dan Paulson. Welcome to the channel. A few people follow my work know what I'm doing, but if you don't, I'm going to show you an interpretation process that I'm utilizing that if you're a theist or an atheist, you're not doing this. This is how it's going to work. These are verbal puzzles. If you believe them to be true, you're not figuring out the puzzle. You're a theist. If you think, no, those are not even true, you're an atheist, okay, that's fine. But do you know that there's something in there? If you took the tortoise and the hare, if that was a religious verse, you would look at that and say the Christians are the ones that are saying it really happened. It's true. And the reason the tortoise won is because he kept his eyes on God. The atheists will be saying, you know what? We haven't evolved that much. Tortoise and hare didn't talk several thousand years ago. That is not a true story at all. And they'll argue back and forth and fight over that all the time. Yet you look at it and go, hey, you two ding-dongs on both sides over there, there's something in the verbiage that is slow and steady that wins the race that you don't even pick up on. Religious verse, exact same thing. Except instead of them being fables and teaching morals, they are the kind of verses that teach an inner mental path. These are mentally interactive. Let's show an example of what I'm going to do. I'll make up my own verse. What I'm going to do, though, is do it the proper way. We get the verses and can't figure out what they mean. Once you figure out what they mean, you understand how they're made. So what I'm going to do, instead of creating a verse and then figuring out what it means, I'm going to come up with a life condition that we are already aware of. Okay? This is something that happened to me once as a child. I got molested. And I was ashamed, and I was very hurt over that, and I didn't let it out. I kept that inside of me. And as a result in life, whenever something happened in my environment that triggered me or made me feel a certain way, that would resurface. It would come up, and it was just, God, I couldn't tolerate it. It was something that was happening over and over again. So I'm caught in this cyclical pain cycle based on something that's happened long ago. How do I resolve that? In order for me to resolve it, what I have to do is to understand that there's something that happened and a way that I perceive it. I can't change what happened. I have to somehow change the perception in such a way that I no longer have the same emotional charge to it, because it is that emotional charge that is being triggered out. If it's shame, and you don't want that, it's going to keep coming out. If you find a way to resolve it so it's not shame anymore, it never comes out anymore because it's no longer shame. That's how you heal. What do we do to teach this? Tell that to people. They're going to say, I'm not doing that. I got too much. I will never tell what I am. Of course, they'll act it out anyway. The fruits from the gardens emerge. Also, I think you protest too much. All of you anti-gay people, you need to take care of that childhood, those childhood memories. It's normal stuff. We're evolving animals. Okay, everybody plays around sexually. You don't have to grow up and hate everybody for what you've done. When you act out, that's exactly what you're demonstrating. Okay, so what I'm going to do is pass this around, but I have to be more artful because the population is not going to pass around that teaching. They're going to say, I'm not doing that. I hate those people. They're this, they're that. They're all these things. A tribal mentality is not going to do this. It's only certain people that are going to say, wow, I see a way inward. There's only certain people that are going to do this. So it becomes isolated. That's who I'm talking to here. If you're not agreeing, I'm not talking to you. You should go away. Okay, so what I do is I create a verse that is cryptic. I will say something like, an anchored ship cannot sail. That's it. You pass that around and that'll go. Now, there's a couple of ways of interpreting it. Well, first of all, you don't interpret at all. Young earth creationist or a biblical literalist. Yeah, when you park the ship, you put the anchor in the water or it's going to float away. Yeah, you have to do that. That's all they're going to get out of it. They're not going to understand that there's something in there. Now, somebody who becomes more clever, and we're going to find most humans get into this realm. The young earth creationists are the worst of thinkers, absolutely the worst of figuring things out. They cannot process data. They cannot collect things and resolve a puzzle. They can't. They're going to take a verbal puzzle and just go, oh, I'm going to eat that up and carry it and beat people up with it because it's my salvation. All right. So anyway, I would say something like an anchored ship cannot sail. And the person that is going to not interpret it is going to be a literalist. But what happens then is now there is a second layer. The second layer is a physical layer, and that's where Christianity and atheism both reside, at a physical layer. This is looking outward, not looking inward. It's looking outward. It's not looking inward. I don't care about emotions. When you're praying, when you're relinquishing, when you're giving outward, when you're looking outward, it's looking outward. It's not looking inward. Is God out there? Is Jesus out there? Is the Holy Spirit out there? You're looking outward. Okay, but you're clever enough to go, oh, this is about me. I am that ship, but it's about the physical world. An anchored ship cannot sail. What does that mean? I'm hanging on to my dead-end job, old relationships, old belief systems. I need to move ahead in life, but I'm caught in this pattern and I can't escape. You know what? That's perfect. Sounds great. Teach that to people and they'll go, okay, yeah, I got that. It makes sense. But somebody else will come along and say, oh, no, wait a minute. I don't even remember my parents. I remember being raised in an orphanage, being molested, being beaten, never having enough, being told what a piece of crap I am. I was headed for jail when I left. I was in trouble all the time. But I found a group of people that I became involved with that were my sanctity. I found a port to anchor in to keep me safe. So you want to become anchored. You don't want to cast off anchor. You want to be anchored. And you'd go, well, damn, that sounds good too. But what do we have there? We have conflict of verse. I'm keeping it benign so that nobody can argue with this. We have different people interpreting the verse the same way, but they're looking outward. It's about the physical life. When the right person comes along, they're going to say, I'm the ship, and what I'm hanging on to isn't in the physical world. It's in the mental world. It's in my past. It is the things that I judged and hang on to in life that are causing me to continue to cycle through pain. That's how I'm going to be interpreting this. So if you're interpreting it in one of those other ways, it's all physical outward, this is not your place. This is not your place. These are going to become mentally interactive in my hands. All right. What I just told you right there, too, is an exact Jesus teaching. That you need to resolve the past in order to sail free. This up here, what you're hanging on to, is keeping you from sailing free and having a good life. What does Jesus say? If you come to the altar to leave a gift, and while you're there, you remember you have aught against your brother, set your gift down, stop looking for a better life, stop looking for graces from God. Go resolve the aught against your brother first, and then come back and give your gift. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. You don't even need the God element there. What you need to do is resolve the negative up here. That is the problem. As within, so without. This is where we have to turn to take the material. And Jesus is teaching the same thing. We got to remove the mote from our eye. What is that? The eye of perception. How do I view life? What have I judged? I'm living through those judgments. We need to become poor in spirit, devoid of those things. Okay, now, that having been said, let's go to the templates. This gets a little bit trickier. Okay. They're in Genesis, right in the beginning. There are two templates. There's actually a doubling up of one template. The two creation stories are one template. They're one template, but they're the creation story. You see that they're not the same. These were combined later. They're not the same author. If we look through, we're going to see that the first one has a let there be and there was, let there be and there was, let there be and there was, almost an encoding going on in there. And it's for 7 days. And it's always and God and God and God and God and God. Never any variation. That comes all the way down to the end of the 7th day. And God. We get into the second creation story, and it's not that creation style anymore. And every time it's Lord God, Lord God, Lord God, Lord God. So they're different styles, different authors, but they're both doing the same thing. Now, here's what's important to note. This is going to be a stretch for some people. The Babylonian creation epic, the 7 tablets of creation. We have 7 days of creation here. We're going to have in different kind of works. Here, let me grab an example. All right, this is the Kabbalion. It's strange. It has a very plain language kind of sound to it, but it's still cryptic. It's not so, it's called the Emerald Tablets of Hermes. Yeah, that's not where it is. It's more recent times. But what do we have? We have 7 Hermetic principles, and they're not hidden. What are they? The principle of mentalism. It's all mental. The principle of correspondence. I'm not sure. Principle of vibration, principle of polarity, the principle of rhythm, the principle of cause and effect, and the principle of gender. So there's only a couple of them here that I'm going to be concerned with. We're going to use it on this material. Mentalism. We're going to make it all mental. These, if you take a human life, flip it outward and create a story on it, that's what they've done here in creation. The creation is the birth of each person, and we're going to live through these 7 principles, or 7 days of creation, or 7 tablets of creation. There's a common 7 in there, but in the Bible, in the most cryptic of ways, look at the principle of cause and effect. What would that be? Day 3. Let's just read it. It appeared on day 3. And that's going to be important, too, that it's on day 3. We're going to use that number later. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass and herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. So that means whatever seed is planted is going to keep producing the same kind of offspring. Physical world, that's trees. Mental world, what is that? It's analogous verbiage. What grows from the garden? Whatever is planted there. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. So if we think about that, that's cause and effect. Of seed being planted is, I've made a judgment. And because I've made that judgment, it's going to continue to grow inside of me. It's going to continue to grow. So we're going to see the principle of cause and effect. We're going to see it there, but we're going to have to decode it. It's so cryptic. You're going to be like, what the heck does that mean? And you look at it and step back and go, that concept right there is cause and effect. That's what that is. That's cause and effect. So we're going to do mental. We're going to go cause and effect. And the principle of gender. This is important in Abrahamic works. People don't like it, but it is super important. It's part of a mental hierarchy. Mentalism. Mental hierarchy. The way the stories are written in Abrahamic material is that your conscious mind, so let's stop for a second here first and establish something. You got your conscious mind, you're using it right now, thinking, actively thinking. When you're not paying attention to me, you might be off on your own someplace, and your conscious mind is occupied with thoughts of the past or fears or things that you have to resolve, or might be in the moment having fun or something like that. The conscious mind is the experiencer. It's the one that feels it. It's what sees what's going on and feels what's going on. But that gets stored someplace. That gets stored in the subconscious. That becomes our bundle of memories. That is what we're going to be working to resolve here. That's what the mote in the eye is. That is what the odd against our brother is. The mote, the bundle of memories right there. All right, for practical application in their analogous verbiage, what they're utilizing is a patriarchal society where they're looking and saying the husband is in charge of the wife. She better be subservient. Here, what we're going to do, it's in the mental hierarchy. We're going to call this the male and this the female. Doesn't matter if you're a man or woman. The consciousness is Adam. The inner self is Eve. That's why Adam shows up first, Eve emerges later, only after some naming has happened. We start off in life, we're alive but not aware. We experience life, but we have no recollection of it. We have to start developing enough and start having memories before we can start living happy child life. That's Adam and Eve, naked, unashamed, in the garden right there. Adam comes first, then Eve comes afterwards. So we have to interpret the stories that way, and the principle of gender is going to be important right there. There's a mental hierarchy. That's why later they're going to say you must remain subservient to the husband. That's always going to happen. It is our inner self that is a product of the way we've judged our experiences and what we see in life. That's what it is. And when we don't feel good, bad things are acting out. They're a part of us, but they're a part of our judgment. They're a part of that cycle of seeds have been planted and now they're growing and repeating over and over again. So we're going to start putting all these pieces together and understanding that it's up here. Who is God? We emerge from God, and God is that higher awareness that we live through, but we're not aware of it. When we're children, we don't have mental cognition to do it, to know that. But we actually will experience it from time to time. If you're tossing and turning at night and you're worried about something, you can't get it off your mind, but once in a while a voice steps in that's completely calm. Hey, you got to let it go. You got to get some sleep tonight. That is the higher awareness right there. That is where we come from. And if you stop and sit with that, listen to that, and just be there, you're going to find it doesn't continue to communicate with you. It's like it's a part of your consciousness that was there before we began living through our memories, and it still exists outside of our memories. So when that voice is talking, stop and hang out with it. You'll see that you don't feel the emotions or the worries right there. That's who we really are. That's our connection with God. That's sitting beside God. Or if you're meditating, trying to clear your mind and not think of things, that's what you're doing. You're trying to get to that place right there where you're not experiencing your memories. It's the true you. Okay, so we have God, this higher awareness out there, the consciousness that does all the experiencing and has to go back and forth and be the go-between, but we don't know it. Then the inner self, which is the bundle of memories. So there's 3 component parts right there. And that later is going to morph into Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Those components always remain the same. It's the way that it's carried that continues to vary. There's one truth in the core of this is really tough to get to. If you get here, it's a magical place to get behind the curtain. Okay, so we've got those 3 components, and then what do we have? We have offspring. The offspring are the things that are, it's another way of saying the things that are growing from the garden, but whether it's, fruits or figs or thistles or whatever the case may be, good and bad stuff that emerges from us based on our perceptions and how we mentally hang on to things, which creates our emotional feel. So when we don't feel good, it's because we have a lot of conflict up here. We have to resolve that in order to feel okay, which brings, so the offspring is another, that's a story component. That's not held here in the offspring, but as we get into Abrahamic material, as Adam and Eve, that's us, have offspring, those are iterations of us. We start out naked, unashamed in the garden, but as we leave and Cain and Abel come about, we now step in, those are iterations of us. We now become Cain and Abel, divided, we split. So the stories are going to flow that way. The offspring are going to fit in like that. There's going to be good ones, there's going to be bad ones, and those are all qualities. You know what? I know what to do, but I didn't do it right. Boom. We just had a Cain and Abel moment right there. The story is a magnificent story, but it's really on the human psyche, on how life works up here. And then what happens? You see all the energy, the vibration, all those other things. We flow in life in a collective, we know that we flow, or that we can feel emotional collective. If you get together and worship or something like that, there's a high uplifted feeling. Imagine if you could hear something that was very pleasing coming from somebody, and bunches of people got together and they were all humming that same pleasing sound. It would get louder and louder and louder. You could be humming it too, but it's going to get so loud and you can't get there on your own. A humming or something that looks pretty, you keep putting more to it, or something that tastes good, whatever the case. The more you add to it, the larger it gets. That's what's happening then in an emotional field. How does that happen? We must, and I'm going to say that we're radiating and kind of going through the central nervous system is how we feel this. We would have evolved that way, sensing fear and joy. That helps protect the group. Okay, so we're flowing in life based on the nature of what's up here. So we have a higher awareness. We have a consciousness. We have a subconscious. That's going to be God, Adam, as we get into this, Eve. Then the offspring, which is iterations of us. And then the general flow in life as a result, which is going to be tough to see in early Genesis material. We're going to see it when Adam is told, you're going to go live the life part of your punishment is to go live life and not reap the full benefits of it. That's going to be your flow in life. How do we improve our flow? Your Father who sees in secret rewards you in secret. That's also telling us there's a flow. You get this resolved up here, the flow goes better. It's a secret thing. It's behind the scenes. So we have all 5 of those components then. An emotional state that we flow through, which creates if you keep getting triggered over something, it's because it's not resolved. Once you got it resolved up here, you're going to stop having those experiences and stop even dealing with the people. Life is going to change the flow of it when you change what's up here. But you have to actively do it. So those 5 things are component parts of this interpretation process. And you know what? I should state, and I haven't, at this level, you're looking at it going, this is completely natural. We're functioning with the God of Spinoza here. And life is flowing in an energy-based system, not a supernatural. People holding on to the supernatural, looking outward, are not interacting with the energy base of the material. The supernatural is the carrier for the masses. All right, so if everybody's on board, what I want to say here is that this first, we see the first creation story, and it sets up those 7 conditions. When we get into the second one, there's 5 rivers, and we're naked in Eden. There's a couple of different things going on. These 5 rivers represent those 5 things I'm talking about. There's a garden a river went out of Eden to water the garden. That's our emotional state. And from thence it was parted. It became into 4 heads. So now we have our 5 split there. And this flow, the one from the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Eden represents a mental state of being as we were children, before we were hurt, before we started getting, hopefully that's the case. Some people are born into bad situations. They don't remember a happy childhood. But this presupposes the idea that you've had a happy childhood and that everything is good and you haven't gone off and learned life and been hurt and been raped and been molested and been stolen from and all that kind of stuff, been hungry and starving, that hasn't happened yet. We're at a very happy state. That's what the Garden of Eden represents. So we get through the rivers and let's see. We're commanded of the man saying, of every tree out of the garden you may eat freely, but out of the tree of knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it. For in the day that you eat it, you shall surely die. All right, what is this tree? It's going to be a metaphorical tree. The knowledge, mental. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What kind of fruit is that? A knowledge fruit. That means I learned. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, you shall not eat of it. Don't go judge life. For in the day that you do, you shall surely die. You will lose your happiness and you will become a person that is now starting to live through your memories that are going to be hurtful to you. Okay, and should not be alone. And so here's where Eve comes about. And what happens, therefore, shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. How does a man and a woman become one flesh? Because that's us, conscious and subconscious. You want to remain one flesh. They were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. What is naked? We were not covered with shame, anger, pain, distrust. Everything was good. Okay, so those right there, the creation, that's one template. And it will not reappear. Creation is not going to reappear. What happens next, though, is another template. First of all, where the monomyth starts in Genesis, the first one starts right here, about chapter 6.5. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. That's all that was said so far. But we get down in here into 7. And the Lord said unto Noah, come and all your house into the ark, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation. That's the calling right there. So we become Noah. We are going to turn inward. This represents us turning inward and getting ready to destroy our early life judgments. All of this then is life up to that. We've started out in the Garden of Eden, naked, unashamed, and here we are at chapter 3, ready to sin. All right, so they did. The serpent represents the temptation of life. That's all. We're all going to get tempted by the serpent. This is why all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. You have to say it metaphorically. I mean, I'm not born a sinner that needs to give myself over to God. That's a metaphorical and analogous means to say that you're going to make judgments of life and start living through your memories that you're going to have to go resolve later, or they're going to hurt you. Here, if I was to extract that, for all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, if I was to extract the mental concept, put it into plain language from that teaching based on everything that we've done so far, sin is judging something, and God is what? The higher awareness. For all have judged and lose contact with their higher awareness. You're going to live through your memories. That's what that means. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. For all are going to judge life and cease to live through your higher awareness. So anyway, that temptation happens. She goes ahead and eats it. Their eyes were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Okay, so what happened? We just got covered. This is not physical. This is mental. We are now ashamed. I got something I'm not going to tell you. I got secrets. I don't want them to get out. They hurt me. They haunt me, but they're not getting out. I'm now covered. I'm not naked anymore. What happens right after the flood to Noah? All right, they heard the voice of the Lord walking through the garden. It's part of the story. They're getting it set up. It's not really happening. What it is putting it's teaching the idea. Here we go with it. And unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. This is so important. This is key to the woman. This is the subconscious. I will greatly multiply your sorrow of your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children. I'm going to greatly multiply the stuff through cause and effect, the things that are planted in your garden. As the children come forth, it's going to hurt. Every time these act out of you, there's our cyclical pain element right there. Every time you give birth, it's going to be painful. Metaphorical. Every time you get triggered, it's going to be painful. And there's the hierarchy. Your husband shall rule over you. You're a product of the conscious thinking. You don't interpret that. What does it sound like? Yo, woman, knuckle under. Yeah, that doesn't sound very good. We're supposed to work better than that. All right, here is going off in the bad way. And to Adam he said, because you have hearkened unto the voice of your wife, and you have eaten of the tree which I said, don't eat, cursed is the ground for your sake, and sorrow you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. That's living life crappy. You're going to live a crappy life. You're going to work your ass off. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread until you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, and for the dust of it. Yeah. Okay, so this is a part of us. Remember, this is the time in our life where we're going to go off and we're going to start living unaware. We're going to lose our childhood happiness, and we're going to start learning to feel hurt, pain, shame. It's going to start out gradually, but it's going to accumulate. So clothe them, and the Lord God said, man has become as one of us. That's a weird thing there, isn't it? That's not a monotheism. We'll leave that alone right now. This is early Genesis. It was still finding its way from Babylonian works. To know good and evil, and now, lest he put forth his hand and take forth of the tree of life, and eat it and live forever. Okay, so that's a weird thing. There's a tree of life in there. The tree of life is something you do want to take. There's a couple of stories where the tree of life is taken. That's not for this. Okay, what we're starting off here is our human life template, though, that since creation is done, this can start over again, this template. Okay, so they sent him from the garden to till the ground from whence it was taken. So we're going off now, and we're going to live life. We're not in our happiness anymore. We're going to go off and have to work and figure out life. And it's guarded. Why is that? To keep the way of the tree of life, and a flaming sword which he turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. Anyway, sounds like it's guarded. You can't get back there. Why can't you? We can never find that childhood bliss again. We have to go to a new place. We were blissful to begin with because we didn't know anything. Now we know stuff, and you can't be blissful without resolving it. All right, so then they have a couple of sons. This is us dividing. We're moving along in life. I am not the same person I was when I was a kid. I remember being a teenager and trying to steal a bag of cookies from a grocery store, and I got caught and I got in trouble. I am not that kid anymore. I'm not. So what they're doing here is they're just showing iterations of us as we go along. We are each of these people. All right, so what happens is Cain wipes out Abel. What we're going to see right here in verse 16, and Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. Okay, it's very thick story stuff, but look at, how can you leave the presence of the Lord? I guess you walk away. The Lord is supposed to be everywhere, omniscient, omnipresent, everything. So that it can't be that. You went out from the presence of the Lord. If this is the higher awareness and you lived through it, but now you're starting to live through your memories, you've left the presence of the Lord. And you're going to dwell in the land of Nod. The Nod is a bad place on the east of Eden. East is not a good place to go. Okay, so right here, if you notice, the Lord is not mentioned again until it's time for the flood. Until the world has gone bad. The Lord is completely gone. Why would that be? Plant a garden, don't come and tend it. You have to come back later. It's completely, you have to tear up everything, including all of your expensive plants and everything, because you have to start over again. That would be a pretty poor gardening job. All right, we're going to see divisions like this where Lamech took two wives. One was Adah and the other Zillah. We become Lamech, and this is a division again. This is a Cain and Abel motif right here, but female instead of male. And what do we have? The father of such that dwell in tents and as of cattle. This is life going on. We're just living our lives, doing our jobs. We start out with low-level jobs, and we work up harder. We learn how to, what do we have? Such as handle the harp and the organ. We have music, artificer and brass and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain and was Naamah. These are very thick stories, but they're held in the idea that we are living our lives and just not aware of it. That sounds kind of rough. We're always aware of things. What I mean there is that we are living life not aware of the fact that we're just attaching to the physical world, that we're not stepping back and watching things, we're judging, we're doing all those kind of things. That's a normal part of life. We do that. If you get to a point where you want to change, that's when it ceases to be that way. There are people, however, that never become that way, but most people do. What happens truly Lamech 7 and 7-fold? There's some numbering code in there that we're going to skip. It gets too long, but this entire Adam's lineage right here is going to go by, and that's an analog farm. I'll cover that in other videos. We get down here to 6. In fact, I'll say this: if you took this completely out from Adam up here, chapter 5 all the way down to probably, well, chapter 6, yeah, it will make a difference. All this is time going by. This represents time going by. But the reason they put it in here is because they're building some numbers for some encoding stuff in the background. It's thicker than what we know. All right, this is us. And it came to pass when men began to multiply in the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them. This is our qualities and characteristics. What are our daughters? What are the beautiful daughters? They were fair. This is our trust, our love, our open-mindedness. All of them were there and pure. As time went by, though, we got more and more complicated, and all of those inner qualities that we had began to become corrupted. And the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he also is flesh, yet his day shall be 120 years. It's another coded piece right here, but this is saying, and the Lord said, my spirit shall not always strive with man. This is really just saying you're not going to be living through your higher awareness. For he is also flesh. You're going to go live the physical world and learn about, jewelry and makeup and how to make people happy and all kinds of stuff until you get to a point in life where you go, oh, God, that's not important, is it? There were giants in the earth in those days, and after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children unto them, the same became mighty men, which were of old, and men of renown. Who are these giants of the earth? Those are every time you smash something, scream, yell, punching holes in the drywall, all of that. Those are the giants in the earth that need to be destroyed. The judgments, the hatred, the fears, the shames, the I'm not good enough, the self-doubts, all of that. The things that prevent feeling good and success. Those are the giants in the earth, and that is what needs to be destroyed right now. And what is happening, if you're the right person, you become Noah. You're going to be the one that goes, okay, I see what's happening. We have to flood all this out. Now, it's a very old style. It's very reminiscent of the Enuma Elish. when we get into chapter 12, something is different is going to happen. But what we did right here is just cover a human life template. Well, first the creation template, and then there's a human life template. From the time you are children and you go off to life temptations, and it goes on to the point that your life is now a turmoil and you're like, what is going on? You need to figure it out. And you figure out that you must turn inward, that you're living through your memories that are unresolved. And that, whether you like it or not, is creating your flow in life. And that in order to change your flow in life, you must change the way you're holding things up here. That is where now the monomyth comes in. Now we have Noah. And what is he? He's naked and drunk on the other side. What is that? You can't make it physical, spiritual. He's uncovered again, and he feels good. Created a new vineyard. Grew a vineyard on the other side, a husbandman. So you create a new life after resolving this issue. You're uncovered. You feel good. Your son's covered you back up, though. Why? More iterations of you. You got more stuff. You took care of one thing. How many more things are in there? So that's when the monomyth starts rolling along in the Bible. But for this part right here, that is it. So that's a human life cycle in just a very short couple of verses there. From 3, 4, 5, and 6, it's time to destroy it. Just in those right there is a very short human life cycle. Okay, to reiterate what we have so far, first of all, the chapter 1 and chapter 2 are creation stories. They're not going to reoccur. You cannot have another creation. No myth or religion is going to have a second creation story. They're going to have a recreation story. They can have a recreation story, but they won't have a creation repeat, an initial creation repeat again. That's the beginning of all things. So how can you begin again? All right. So the next one, however, is the human life cycle that goes from chapter 3 all the way up to chapter 6, where the divisions happen and the time goes by and the final destruction happens and everything's angry and it needs to be destroyed out. All of that is the second template. So let's jump to chapter 12 and see what there is. All right, what I have here, the very first verse, this number 24 right here, I pulled this down from from chapter 2. This is what Adam was told there. Here's what they're told here in chapter 12. Now, chapter 12 is an important number, but it's the beginning of a life cycle again. Now, the Lord had said to Abram, get out of your country and away from your kindred and from your father's house into a land that I will show you. Here we have, therefore shall a man leave his father and mother and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And I left out the part that they're in the Garden of Eden. Okay, so what and they're not supposed to eat anything in the Garden of Eden either. They can eat of all the things except for a couple of specific trees, or one specific tree that they went ahead and ate from anyway. That right there, those should both sound pretty similar. Leave your father and start off. You're going to be out on your own. All right, let me get rid of that. It might not be easy to see. And I don't mean out on your own. This isn't leaving home and going out on your own. This is a point where you are mentally developing to a point to where you are now judging what you see. And, that could happen maybe when you leave home. Maybe you have a really nice home, really nice community. And it's like, I had no idea people in the world were like this. You come from a place like that. Or most people in the home at an earlier age start learning things from family members or friends or other things in the community that, wow, not everybody is nice. And there's a lot of reason to judge things and to not feel okay about things. That's what this really represents here. Leave that pure state behind and begin to live your own life, judging it. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. This is all about you and your life experiences. All right, so instead of saying you're going to go off and live a bad life, it says you're going to go off and live a great life. And I will bless those that bless you and curse those that curse you. And in you all families of the earth shall be blessed. Okay, all the families of the earth are all of the things that you're going to learn, all of your beliefs, all of your memories. Those are all the earth is your life experience, and all the families are all that are in there. And I will bless them that bless you and curse them that curse you. Why? Because whatever you hold in judgment, whether it's good or bad, is going to continue to emerge in life, good or bad. If you've got stuff put away that is angry and hateful or shameful, it's going to continue to reemerge. I will curse those that curse you and bless those that bless you. In fact, let me show you a parallel example that is not in religious verbiage, but in psychological verbiage. This is the Tao Te Ching, about 500 years older than Jesus material, the Stephen Mitchell translation. Chapter 1, the Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. We have to inquire this, the Tao is the pathway. The pathway that can be told is not the eternal pathway. It could be the real pathway. What is eternal? I want the eternal pathway. So apparently it can't be one that's told. So how do you get the eternal pathway then? You take the eternal pathway. This is telling us it's a mental trip. You can sit and listen to somebody preach all day long telling you how to feel better, but unless you go inside in your mind and your memories and do the work, it's not going to happen. This is a mental trip, personal, mental. The Tao that can be told is not the eternal Tao. The Tao that is taken is your eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. Remain in that void. This is that pure state. The unnameable is the eternally real. Judge not. That's us in the Garden of Eden. Unnameable is the eternally real. Naming is the origin of all particular things. Or, in another translation, the named is the mother of 10,000 things. That means your memories. You're going to begin having memories, and that's the beginning of them. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. I've got some Jesus parallels in here. Free from desire, you realize the mystery. Free from desire. That's not desire of food or things like that. That is stay in a flow. It's mental. Leave it pure. Naming is the beginning of it. Free from it, free from the things you've named, you realize the mystery of life. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. You see the continual repetitive nature of the things that you have named. Here's the part that's going to parallel, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Yet mystery and manifestation come from the same source. This source is called darkness. What did we have up here? Free from desire, you realize the mystery of life. Ah, that's good. Caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. That's the repeated bad stuff. Yet mystery and manifestations come from this same source. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you comes from right there. The source is called darkness. Darkness within darkness, the gateway to all understanding. That's into your mind. The gateway to all understanding. That's your own tomb. Belly of the whale. All right, so Abram departed as the Lord spoke to him, and Lot went with him, and Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. 70 and 5. That's important. Those are two separate numbers. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance they had gathered, and they move along, and let's see. And Abram passed through the land of Shechem. I'm going to jump ahead here. It's too long. And I'm going to give you this land. And from there he moved to a mountain on the east of Bethel, pitched his tent. East of Bethel, east of Eden. And Abram journeyed going on to the south. Okay, here we have it. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. All right, so what's happened here, and I know I'm jumping through a lot of stuff pretty quickly here, but the famine in the land means what? That you are in a devoid place. The famine in the land is your mind. The famine is, I haven't learned anything. I don't know anything. Why would God put somebody in a place called Canaan and then say, there's no food? And then where? Why isn't he there to give them food? Why does they have to leave and go to Egypt? For the famine was grievous in the land. That means you're going to go off. So Egypt is life experience. You're going to go off and live life experiences because you don't know anything. And it came to pass when you came near Egypt. So what's happening here is there's something setting up. Abram is saying to Sarai, I know you're a fair woman to look upon, and when the Egyptians see you, they're going to say, this is his wife, and they're going to kill me, but they'll keep you alive. So please tell them you're my sister, that it'll go well with me for my sake, and my soul shall live because of you. And it came to pass that when they came into Egypt, the Egyptians did think the woman was very fair. A Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh. and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. Hey, Pharaoh, hot woman. And guess what? It's the guy's sister. It's his sister. And he entreated Abram well for her sake. He's like, oh, yeah, give me your sister. Thank you very much. And he gave him sheep and oxen and he-asses and men-servants and maidservants and she-asses and camels. Sarai is Abram's wife. Out of fear, he gave up his wife who married Pharaoh. And he got goods for it. But what happens? The Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. All right, so this just doesn't make sense. How long do plagues take? Where's the Lord? Why didn't he help? Why didn't he give him food to begin with? Why isn't he there till after the dirty deed? Oh, I'm going to send plagues down there. That sounds like some pretty weak stuff right there. You have to interpret this. All right, this is us. We've gone off into life. We're giving up our inner self to life experience. Pharaoh represents that. Pharaoh is not held as a bad guy here, but as a good guy. But what are you getting? You're gathering up things as a result of giving up your inner being. You've given up your inner being to life experiences, and now you're collecting these things along the way. Play it like a video game. And then what happens? Great plagues. What we're having is cyclical pain. Now we're having cyclical pain because of Sarai, Abram's wife, because she's accumulated. Then why would it be her problem? What the hell? Well, I guess because of what he did to his wife. At any rate, the way this really reads is that your inner self and you're experiencing cyclical pain as a result of giving yourself up to early life. And Pharaoh said, what have you done to me? This is my wife. Why did you say she's my sister? And Pharaoh commanded his men, concerned him, and sent him away with his wife and all that he had. So Pharaoh's actually the one that's like, you know what? You didn't tell me that. Why did you lie to me? Here, take your wife, take your goods, everything that I gave you, and leave. And he told everybody to let him go. That's just weird as hell. Here, yeah. We're moving on in life. That means you're going on to the next stage. All right, this gets so big, I'm going to skip through here. These are going to go through the same sort of life stage things, but when we get down to 17 down here is where the calling happens. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, and the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am Almighty God, walk before me and be perfect. What happened? The Lord just reappeared. The Lord was available up in here from time to time, but it was just in little bits and pieces, or in visions, or in messages from angels or something like that. And you know what? That seems very accurate to me. I can look back on my life during the entire time where I was living the human life cycle without becoming aware and turning inward, that there were many a times where I would go, I need to do this. I need to do that. I got the best. I know the best thing. These little things are, you know what to do, but we give in. But what is that? That's the higher awareness. When you're tossing and turning at night and it's coming in and talking to you, if you don't know it's the higher awareness, that's it. That's like an angel of the Lord or something. It's trying to, it's talking to you, but you're not aware of it. All right, so Abram falls on his face and talked to him, and what happens down here in 5, neither anymore shall you be called Abram, your name shall be called Abraham, for a father of many nations have I made you. This is the conversion. This would be like saying the calling of Noah. Now we have the calling of Abraham. So this right here starts a new monomyth. And it's setting up all of the conditions and everything like that, including the 8-day circumcision that's going to come about. But this is a monomyth beginning on 17. So everything from 12, 13, 14, and 15, and 16 are another human life cycle. And you don't find many of those. They can appear anywhere, though. But as you get into things like, Ezekiel or Joshua or something like that, it's just going to be the calling. You don't know that God appears, but there's this transition. Somebody new coming out, you're the one. God appears and talks to you. God appears from overhead or something like that. Okay, so I wanted to just say that about the templates, that the Bible has a lot of monomyth templates. They're recognizable. I do the different video on that. In fact, look here in Ezekiel. You'll see how God appears in this one. It's pretty evident. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Chebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. Okay, this is you looking inward, standing among the captives by the river of Chebar. Who are the captives? That's you and all the people inside of you, all the facets inside of you. They're like, oh my God, I'm failing in so many different ways. They're all captives. All the things I want to do by the river Chebar. That's a threshold we're going to have to cross. The heavens were opened. Your mind opened up and you saw visions of God. You began to reconnect with the higher awareness. It's time to go on the journey. This is the beginning of a monomyth. But that there are templates also in there, the creation templates and the human life cycle templates, that if you look at them, you will see the patterns in them. Not just in it's kind of tricky, but it's weird. You have to inquire the verse. You have to read it and go, what am I reading here? What is this? Yeah, and you have to use those things. It's mental. It's based in cause and effect. It's based in gender what? Gender is really not a good term. It's based in a mental hierarchy where gender might be used. Consciousness male, subconscious female. Those are not qualities and characteristics. They're a mental hierarchy. They're analogous terms, like saying, I want to be naked in public. I do. People would go, oh my gosh. I'm using it as an analogous term. That means spiritually naked. I don't want to have to hide anything. I don't want to feel like I have any shame if anybody finds out anything. That's what it means. I want to be drunk. That doesn't mean staggering all over the place. In the spiritual world, it means I want to feel good. I got a new feeling here. Yeah, I got a different way of feeling. Jesus will use that. He'll turn water into wine. All right. So again, the two templates that I'm talking about here is the creation template. This is how life works. You begin, you start out, you're pure, fresh, and you're going to live through these conditions. That right there is not going to be repeated in the religion. What happens next, though, is before the called hero, before the inward path, is how you come about, how you live life. What happened? What went wrong? I started judging things. My life I was not aware of what I was doing. Time went by. I continued to have iterations of myself until I was trashed and I realized, whoa, I'm a spiritual wreck. I've got to turn inward and do some healing. I've got to do some resolving of things. That template right there is also not identified. Beyond that is the monomyth. That is when the called hero, that's when we become the called hero and turn inward, cross the threshold, and go defeat the enemy within, is how these stories are. I haven't posted this recently. Jesus is a common monomyth hero. He does not have a life laid out ahead of him or before him, though. Watch for the conceptual patterns here and some comparisons from antiquity. First one, Jesus is called as the Son of God, has supernatural powers, travels with hand-picked disciples, and seeks the kingdom of heaven within. Jason is called as the rightful ruler, has Hereford supernatural powers, travels with the Argonauts, and seeks the golden fleece. King Arthur is called as the only one who could extract Excalibur, has Merlin for supernatural powers, travels with hand-picked knights, and seeks the Holy Grail. Do you see the pattern? This is what Joseph Campbell identified. George Lucas used Joseph Campbell's template for the first Star Wars trilogy. These are not very complete. I'm just showing you some high points here that you can see. Oh, yeah, those line up. Luke is called as the son of Vader, has the Force for supernatural powers, travels with special selected rebels, and seeks to save the Alliance. You would also notice that all of the stories have a doubter in their midst. This was not identified by Joseph Campbell, but you've got a Judas, Lancelot, C-3PO, and Acostus, the son of Pelias, in the Jason and the Argonaut story. There's like an element along that is not... Well, okay, what this represents is each one of us. The supernatural powers represents the knowledge of what to do. We're traveling with what? We need to have knowledge and information, justice. These names are going to represent something. But the doubter is that part of us that goes, oh gosh, I'm a doubter. Okay, there's a part of us that doubts. But we're all looking for an end goal that is mental inner peace. Okay, so I just wanted to say that in this video. I hope it was helpful to somebody. Questions, comments? I'd love to hear them. Take care.